This is going to change the underpinning of financial markets, capital markets worldwide. You need to be able to interact with this space. You have to do it in a smart way. Even if you don't see them entering the space in a big way, they're all getting ready for it. They're so much further along in terms of clarity, right? And that's all the industry is looking for. We're looking for, there's so many good players in the space that want to do the right things, that want to play by the rules. We just don't know what those rules are.
Yeah.
Just because you put it on the blockchain doesn't change its regulatory status.
Yeah.
If you go ask most financial advisors today, either I want to buy crypto or here I have crypto, can this be part of my financial plan? They're going to say sell it or absolutely not or go somewhere else. They just will not interact with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just wrapped up the Digital Fusion Summit. Just listened to 4 amazing panels filled with talented thought leaders from the space, from the blockchain ecosystem. To my right is Erin Friez, the Chief Operating Officer, the Chief Compliance Officer of Digital Ascension Group, which is one of Jay Claver's brands that are radically transforming their respective industry. Erin, how are you doing post this event? What are your thoughts? Any comments, remarks that stuck out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really interesting things that were said tonight. And I think that the most impactful thing from my perspective has been the conversation that I've had with the people that have come. There's been a lot of people that I think have learned a lot in terms of what we're doing behind the scenes, things like secure custody and the way that we're making decisions around these assets that help people put some faces behind it. It feels more tangible and more real. Is when people understand that a little bit better, they get more comfortable with it. One of the things, like I said in the beginning on my panel, was you need to think about this as it's an early stage tech investment, right? This is just another new piece of technology. And like a lot of the other panelists said, this is happening, right? This is going to change the way that we interact with money. This is going to change the underpinning of financial markets, capital markets worldwide. You need to be able to interact with this space. You have to do it in a smart way. You have to do it with people that are knowledgeable in the space and partners that you can trust.
Yeah.
But the train has already left the station, so we got to get going. And I think a lot of people took that away.
With your experience working at the London Stock Exchange or around it, so understanding the regulatory aspect with this new and emerging alternative investment space or the intersection of the two, what are your thoughts with those narratives that you hear of, oh, crypto's taboo? And when you're sitting in the front seat of that, as mentioned, intersection of TradFi and DeFi, what crosses your mind? Or what do you want to say to those people that have those beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. I have helped a number of large international, traditional financial institutions get into crypto. They all want to be there. And even if you think that those financial institutions are not in the space, I promise you that they are building out the teams, they are building out the infrastructure, they are putting the compliance and their risk teams in place for this, and they are doing the work behind the scenes. They're much more into the space than you think that they are, and because they know that it's coming, right? They all know that it's coming. They all know that they want to be there when things really start to take off. One of the things I hear from them a lot is so I think at some point we will see a flood of institutions really enter the space because they are ready. They've been doing the work for years now to get the teams and the infrastructure in place. So it is happening. Even if you don't see them entering the space in a big way, they're all getting ready for it.
Yeah, I interviewed Matt, the co-founder of LF0. He's a mathematician. He's a developer in the space. And he was talking about how the different components of blockchain have been around since the 70s.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's to think that these are just coming out of nowhere. It's this pixie dust type of thing, these narratives that you hear about.
Yep.
It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart.
For me, what I appreciated the most from actually listening from you and Rust and Deal, that hearing the regulatory aspect and hearing about the balance of risk management and the various aspects to navigate within this ecosystem. Yeah. What are your thoughts on how much more roadway is ahead before we see sound regulations underpinning these technologies? Because as mentioned up on stage, we're various jurisdictions around the world are already adopting these new payment rails or technologies. So do you think the US is strategically a laggard to make sure that we're vetting these new systems and seeing what works?
Yeah, it's hard to put a reasoning behind why the U.S. is so behind.
Yeah.
But we certainly are, right? When you look at Europe, when you look at the U.K., when you look at Japan, when you look at anything happening in Asia, they are so much further along in terms of clarity, right? And that's all the industry is looking for. We're looking for, there's so many good players in the space that want to do the right things, that want to play by the rules. We just don't know what those rules are.
Yeah.
And there's no clarity. I do think there's a lot of things coming and a lot of things changing. I also think as we come up and changes at the SEC, especially in leadership, that'll all play a really big role as we move forward.
Do you think that Ethereum has a great potential to be classified as a security?
I actually don't at this point. I think with the Ethereum ETF, it would be hard for the SEC now to classify that as a security because they've already approved the Ethereum ETF. So I actually don't think that's going to be a security. And I think it's going to be really interesting for the SEC to try to navigate around how they can approve it in one instance and then question it in another.
Well, what about with the thoughts of how, with another court case, the SEC versus Ripple, where they recently categorized that as well as not being a security, but some transactions were.
Yes.
Do you think that they're in the same boat? Can Ethereum also be categorized as either or dependent on the transaction?
Sure, but I think at this point, the argument there, especially with Ripple, as I understand it, is that those early institutions that were buying XRP, it really was an investment in Ripple, right? And it was tied to that investment contract. Once you take that XRP and you put it on the secondary market, it is no longer an investment contract. The token is not the investment contract. It can be tied to an investment contract, but in and of itself, it's not. So when you put it on the secondary market, it no longer is. So I think any asset could fall into that framework. But when you talk about putting assets on the secondary market, that's not an investment contract. That is the buying and selling of a token. And especially with something like Ethereum that has a clear utility and it powers the Ethereum blockchain. Yeah.
Would the same then apply to an SPV that's trading in the secondaries market?
No, because an SPV is in and of itself an equity, right? It represents equity. That is a security. That is a security.
Then my question is, could that be the closest vehicle to be categorized as a security token?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. If you're going to tokenize private equity, yeah, exactly. That's a real world asset that is tokenized. That's a security token.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a very clear case. That has to be registered or have an exemption for being registered. And just because you put it on the blockchain doesn't change its regulatory status.
Yeah.
A token is not that, right?
Yeah.
A token is something very different.
What do you envision for Digital Ascension Group, for the utility you provide for the ecosystem? Oh, I'd love for you to talk about what your vision, your mission for Digital Ascension Group.
Absolutely. I love this. I get very excited about it because I think that you have a lot of people that either are in the space already or want to be in the space that work with a financial advisor, right? When you think about how most Americans invest, if they have any exposure to brokerage accounts or when they hold equities, it's through their financial advisor.
Yeah.
Most people aren't interacting with it outside of that. And if they want exposure to crypto, it has to come through those channels, right?
Yeah.
And if you go ask most financial advisors today, either I want to buy crypto or here I have crypto, can this be part of my financial plan? They're going to say sell it or absolutely not or go somewhere else. They just will not interact with it. At Digital Ascension Group, we are building the rails to allow to have an RIA that can manage your crypto for you, that can hold it securely, that can advise you on how to get exposure to this asset class if it's appropriate for you. And I get very excited about that.
Yeah, I can tell. And I'm actually very proud of Jake and the team that he's put together of individuals like yourself. I'm very proud of him. Is there any final thoughts or comments you'd like to leave with the audience here?
I'm really happy with this event. It's the first year that we've done it. It's been a really great time. We've met a lot of really great clients and a lot of really great people that we hope to work with. And yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Awesome, Erin.
Appreciate it.
Erin, thank you so much.